Welcome, traveler. You found true north, and here's your host, Micah Price.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the True North podcast. I'm your host, Micah Price, and I'm so excited for this very impromptu, casual episode that's happening today. I have no notes with me or anything like that, but I don't know, I just kind of realized that I've been doing this podcast for hair in my mouth. I've been doing this podcast for maybe 2 or 3 years now, and I've never actually taken the time to introduce myself or talk about the way I came to know the Lord and the way that this all started, the way that True North and the True North podcast even came to be. And it's something I didn't really think about until I was sitting there today and I was like, I probably should explain that. So that's what we're going to do today is, no notes. I have nothing planned necessarily, but I kind of just want to share my story a little bit and some of my testimony and kind of just what led me to do this and what kind of started it all. This lipstick, my hair is sticking to it. Anyway, so let's go back in time to probably, oh my goodness, there it is. Okay, we're good now, sorry. Probably the 2nd grade. And I remember, I've been raised in church at this point. I've been raised in church. I've been in church my whole life, private school. So I knew God and I knew about God and I knew who God was. And I guess I did the prayers and I did all that kind of stuff. That was normal to me. That's just what we did. But I didn't really understand or comprehend totally who God was to me. And I will never forget, I think I was in 2nd grade, like I said, and it was storming really bad one night. And I was in bed. My sister and I were going to bed. And my mom was praying with us like she does every night. And it was honestly kind of dramatic. There was this thunderclap. And I remember getting chills. She was praying while the thunder was going on. And I just remember feeling wow, there's something bigger than me. There's something more to this than what I'm saying. It's not just words that I'm saying. There's more to this. And I have always really believed that was the moment that I was truly saved. I did the whole I accept Jesus into my heart when I'm really little, which is great. I think it's great that you get in that practice when you're little, if you've been in Sunday school and things like that, that they teach you that, to continue, thinking about that. Have I asked Jesus into my heart? And this was probably the first time in which I really felt okay, I received this, I know this, and I want to start living this. So as I grew up, stayed in church, and God was always very present in my life. That was something, and in high school and college, I really began to kind of tap into that and really expand on that and really take hold of my faith. I was very fortunate that my best friends in high school also were Christians, and so we all bonded over that, and it was just everywhere that I went. It was a part of my life everywhere. That was the point of everything. And then I graduated, and I remember I went to a secular university. I was on scholarship to play soccer. So I was at college, and I started meeting new people and just being exposed to a corner of the world that I hadn't really seen before. I'm from West Virginia originally, and so I'm from a very small town near Fayetteville. I lived in Fayetteville, and even when I moved from there, I'm still very close to Fayetteville now, so that's kind of where I'm located. But that's a very small area, a very small town. And so going to college was the most people I had ever really encountered that weren't from here. And life is different for everybody, obviously. And not everybody is living the same way that I was. And I had never really been challenged or questioned about that until I went to college and people were asking me what do you believe in? What do you stand for? Do you do this? Do you do that? What do you think about this? And at first I was oh my gosh, what is happening? I had culture shock, but to tell you the truth, I remember a really defining moment where, and my first year was really rough in the sense that I was really at war with this topic specifically, but I was faced with the question of, okay, you get to decide who you're going to be now. Do you want to be this person or do you want to be this person? Because people need an answer. They want to know what you believe in. They want to know what you stand for. What are you going to tell them? And I'm so thankful for the way that God really worked through me. I remember, a lot of it, I was frustrated because I was I had never really received any opposition for my faith before until this moment. When I was in college and surrounded by so many different opinions and beliefs and things, I had never really been around people that didn't believe the way that I did. And I'm really grateful for that now, that I was able to learn so much from people who didn't believe the way that I did, and to share that and teach the Lord's word and like really explain that to people, but also to really look in myself and be like, wow, this is how other people see faith. Like, this is a really big wake up call. And I'm so thankful for everything that came through that I was taught during that time. But I remember the world shut down during COVID, and we all kind of got forced to, come back in and be with our families. And, there was a lot of loss, a lot of heartbreak there. And so I'm one of 3. So I have 2 sisters that lived with me as well. So my sisters and I were all forced to go back home. And honestly, there were so many things about this that I miss, like the binging of Dance Moms, like unrivaled. Cannot replace that with anything. And I remember being this is a tangent, but just very thankful for the time that I got to have with my family within that. That was something that we needed, and we didn't realize that we needed it. But anyway, so there was a lot of good to come from that. And that's kind of where I'm going now. That is what led me into the birth, I could say, of True North. So little backstory, I have always been a writer. I have always written things. I used to do the Young Writers contests, and I would write things for my family to read and things like that. Short stories, little things. And then as I got older, I got very protective and very private of my writing. I don't really know why, but I hated for anyone to read things. I would write little, novels, so to say, on my computer. And I remember yelling at my dad, don't read that, don't read that. I was so upset about it. So that was really silly. But I was always very private about the things that I read or the things that I wrote. And as I got older, I started getting really positive feedback for the things I was turning in and writing. People were like, you have a real gift for this. And I was like, oh, well, it's just something I like to do, whatever, And I remember I was a sophomore in high school, and we were challenged with this writing assignment to write about an experience that we had had. And I remember that things just kind of started flowing out, and I didn't really realize I was writing about this. But I started writing about loneliness because it was something that I was experiencing at the time. I was feeling very isolated and very lonely. And even in high school, before I got to college, the Lord was prepping me to face those situations and those feelings, and I didn't even realize it. So it's just a cool connection. But I started writing about loneliness and about how God pulled me through that. And I knew that my teacher was a Christian, and I knew that she would, receive this and receive it well. And I wrote about it, and she pulled me aside and was like, Micah, this is really deep. This is really good. And I was really young at the time to have written something so emotional, I guess, but I was really feeling it. Apparently I was really going through it. It was in my feels. And so I really held on to this, and I started sharing it with my family members because, my teacher gave me the confidence that it was good. And they were like, oh my gosh, wow. And so, fast forward a little bit, I hold on to this writing assignment, and my youth pastor approaches me, and she says that they're going to be having a conference, and she asked if I would like to give my testimony. And the first thing I said to her was, oh, I don't have one. I don't have a testimony. And she was like, everybody has a testimony. And for those of you that don't know, I think testimony can seem like a very Christianese word. A testimony is the story of you. It's the story of what you've been through and how you got to the other side of it. Everybody has one of those. And a lot of times with faith filtered in it, a testimony is the story of how God brought you from one thing to the next, to the other side of it. And I had convinced myself instantly that I didn't have one because I hadn't survived some, God, thank goodness I hadn't, but some big accident or some huge tragedy at the time. I hadn't really gone through that, and I'm very thankful for that, but I wasn't rationalizing that I still had a story despite that. And so, she really encouraged me. I really want you to do this. I think this would be good for you. And so I did it, and I brought the writing that I had done. And I said, you know what? I bet other people have at least felt lonely before. So if nothing else, people can relate to this in some way. And I will never forget the way it felt to be able to share that and be like, wow, I do have something that I can say. God has done something in my life, and other people can relate to it and get something from it. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me. It was the first time I was in front of a microphone. I was a theater kid growing up, so the stage fright part of it didn't really affect me. And for those of you that know me, this is no shock to you. because I'm crazy. But anyway, it was my first time in front of a microphone publicly sharing something deep like that with other people. And little did I know what God was going to be doing later on in my life. And so all that to say, a lot of people, and the enemy especially, will convince you that you don't have a story and that you don't have something worth telling, that God hasn't done anything in you. He hasn't done anything big enough for you to talk about. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a purpose, a God-given purpose. You just have to be bold enough to share it. It doesn't have to be some big, gigantic, monumental thing. In fact, those are the things that not everybody can relate to those things. They're very powerful stories, but there is also power in the relatability of simplicity and everyday life testimonies. I mean, we have a testimony at the end of every day. God did something for you every day if you pause to look for it. And that was a really important perspective that I gained really young. And I'm thankful for that, because in college I forgot that a lot. And it was really hard to get back to that. So anyway, coming back to COVID. So like I said, I had been writing things forever and I stored them up. Like I knew that I wanted to have, I called it a devotional blog. And I wanted to have a devotional blog. And so as I got deeper into my faith in college, I started writing about the Lord and about the things I read in my Bible and what they meant to me, what I thought that they could apply to, and how I could make them, easier to understand. And I just kind of became doing it almost like a diary. Like it just kept happening and I just kept writing these things. And eventually I was like, you know what? I want to do something with these. Like I had been doing this for years in like a Word document on my computer. And I was like, I can't let these sit here forever. So I just slowly started, while I'm in COVID, trapped in the house, forcing my family to read these things and sending them to my friends. And I had a very close circle that I was using to read these things that I knew that were Christian and that had a really good head on their shoulders, and they knew who they were in God, and their identity in God was important. And I knew this was something they would understand and appreciate. And so I wanted their insight to kind of, shine up the rough edges. And so I started thinking, and I was like, well, maybe this could really become something. And so I just kept writing every day. I started writing what would become my blog posts, and I kept writing. And one day I was bored, and my sister is a talented artist. She paints really well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to paint my Bible, because I had a very blank, boring Bible cover. It was a really plain color. And so I sat down at this table with her every day and was painting it. And I was like, well, I need a quote to put on my Bible. And so, I Pinterested some things. I think that's a word, Pinterested. I Pinterested some things. And nothing was really sticking. And I knew I wanted this compass, because I love travel and I love to travel places. And I had just gotten back the year or two before from a trip to Europe, my first trip ever to Europe. And so I was really on this travel kick, and I had drawn a compass and there were flowers on it. And I saw this quote that said, "Your truth is a compass that guides me back north." And it was referring to the Lord's truth. And I was like, that's perfect to go with the compass and everything. So if nothing else, I chose it for aesthetics, to tell you the truth. And so I finished the project, sealed the Bible, super cute. It's still a Bible that I use today. Some of the paint has chipped, but the heart of it is still there on the front. And I started really telling my family, I was like, I really think I'm going to give this blog thing a go. I really think that I have the time now with COVID, and I think I could possibly do this. So we started looking at some things, and my sweet cousin made me logos and everything once I got my design. And I ended up just sitting there at the counter, and I was writing down all these names that I was coming up with, and some of them were so cringe. That's the real testimony, is that the Lord didn't let me choose some of those names. I'm literally cringing to think about it. And so I was sitting there and I was just thinking, and I looked at my Bible and I just said, what about True North? And my mom was like, oh, I love it. And so True North was born. So I sent it to my cousin, and she's super talented and made me my logos, and the logo that you see on my podcast cover she made. So shout out to you, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your talents with me and encouraging me and supporting me that way. And yeah, I just started. I made the Instagram account and Facebook page, and I went ahead and posted a couple before I launched it on my personal page and told people about it. But I do remember being very nervous because, once you post something on the internet, you can't take it back. And faith is a very personal thing. And like I said, I had a really difficult year the year before with people giving me trouble about that, like judging my decision to be a Christian and really questioning it and rejecting me for it. And I remember thinking like, God, I don't know if I'm the right person to pick for this. I don't know if I can handle the rejection that might come with this. I'm flattered that you picked me, but I don't know if I was the right choice. And how often do we do that, we act like God doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm so thankful that he did and that I wasn't the one making the call, because this is my favorite thing I get to do. And I would have missed out on all of that if I had stayed in that fear of being too afraid to be used by God. And my family continued to encourage me. My friends were supporting me, and God really showed me, like, I'm going to pave this way for you to do this, but you have to take the first step. And so on April 26th, I have an anniversary coming up. I launched True North, and the feedback was wonderful. Everyone was so kind and so supportive. And I just, the sense of purpose that it gave me, and still does, was something I had not had before. Like, I had not really understood the feeling of, wow, I'm really doing something that I'm supposed to do. And I remember Sarah that made those logos for me had also started a project, a ministry, passion project that she did that was really successful. And I remember when I told her that and shared with her what was on my heart to do this, she said, oh, get ready, God's not going to let you sleep. And she was right. I was up all night writing things, getting like words from the Lord, I felt like, and I was writing things down and saving them and coming up with new ideas. I mean, it was like a creative fit. It was crazy. It was amazing. And truly, ever since then, anytime I have ever been worried that I'm not going to have enough material to post or enough content to write, the Lord gives me something every single time. I can take no credit for that. And truly, like, True North is such a testament to God's faithfulness. Like, there's so many reasons that this shouldn't have worked, that this shouldn't have become what it has. And the Lord just had his hands all over it. I'm so honored and thankful for that, because, like I said, it's my favorite thing I get to do. And there's so many reasons that I'm not qualified to do it, and that I probably mess it up all the time, or that I didn't give it the time that it deserved. And yet he still blesses it. And I'm so happy and thankful for that. And the podcast portion, which is where we are today, was actually about a year after the blog launched. So people had always like toyed around like, well, you should do a podcast. Aren't you doing your blogs? You should do a podcast. And again, the theater kid in me really makes this possible. So shout out to her. But I had not really thought about it. Podcasts also like weren't that big necessarily until I think COVID really, at least not in my world, because everybody was at home and it was the only way to like hear things and talk about things. And so now podcasts are huge. So it really all worked out timing wise well, but I was like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to do that. And so I bought a starter kit on Amazon with one microphone and some headphones. Not the ones you see in this video if you're watching. These are my upgrades. But I bought a little starter pack that I could afford, and I watched countless YouTube videos to educate myself on how to use the audio and how to record, how to upload, what to upload to, how to stream on certain platforms. Like I really dug in and educated myself. So I went to YouTube University to learn this, and I had some great help. Paul Neal, who is the voice of my intro, was extremely helpful in this process and was very patient with me and really helped me. So thank you, Paul, for that. I still my heart gets warm every time I hear the intro, because I didn't even ask Paul to do that. He just did that for me out of support and kindness. And I just love it so much. So thank you to Paul for helping me with that, and for everyone else that was answering all my questions and helping me. And I remember I launched the podcast in July of the following year. So 2021, I launched the podcast, and the response like shocked me. I was just like, people actually want to listen to me talk? Why? But that's the thing, is that True North has taught me so much, and that it's not about you. It's not about the person. It's not about what you're doing. It's about what God is doing in you and through you and through this project, through this ministry. I never thought True North would actually be considered a ministry ever. I really didn't. And it just proves that when you give something to God, he can do way more with it than you ever thought that he could. And I would trust him with every part of it, because he's just shown me so much through it. And True North has become something that has been almost like therapy to myself, like in finding these answers to these questions and researching and just spending time with the Lord in order to gain knowledge to share. there's so much healing and learning that happens within me that wouldn't have happened otherwise. It's really just transformed my whole life in so many ways in my faith. It's taken my faith to just levels that I never dreamed, and gave me the confidence that, like, I think about that girl in 10th grade that was like, I don't have a testimony. I don't have a story. And now I'm just like, thank you, God, that you told me that wasn't true. You know, thank you for showing me that I had a story because of you. You are my story. You're a part of my story. And he's the most important part. Like, complete main character energy for Jesus, right? I mean, and so that just, I don't know, there's so many other things I think I could say, but I've already talked way longer than I expected to. But yeah, so that's kind of how we got here. And so now we're trying out this vlogging element. So I hope you guys are loving it. And if you're listening and you haven't checked it out, I have a YouTube channel now for the True North podcast, or discover.truenorth. And I post the vlogs of these episodes on there. And then I am on Instagram at discover.truenorth and True North on Facebook. So you can read all my blogs there. I post podcasts once a week. Mondays on the mic is what we do. So every Monday there will be a new episode unless something happens and there isn't. But typically Mondays on the mic. And I will post some blog posts that I write scattered throughout. But I do want to just say thank you to everyone that has listened, because I know a lot of you have been listening since 2020 or 2021 you were listening, but you were reading in 2020 and you were supporting it and sharing it. And all of you that are new, I'm so thankful that you found this however you did, and I hope you stick around because I really like talking to you guys. Again, I really do enjoy this, and I'm thankful that I get to do it. I'm very unworthy to do this and to be talking to you, especially about the most amazing part of my life, which is God. But I'm super thankful that I get to, and I'm thankful to you all for continuing to like and subscribe and listen and do all these things that support True North. I'm very thankful for that, and I don't want to get emotional on the podcast, so I'm going to wrap it up. But I hope you guys will jump back on with me next Monday, and I will talk to you soon.